If what you're doing isn't working, or if you have a failure or rejection, there's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with you personally. Could be something wrong with what you're doing. And I feel like a lot of people get caught up in taking it personally. When you internalize it and you say that I'm the problem, you're actually robbing yourself of looking at what did I do wrong? What can I do to fix it? You can go down the route of I suck, I'm a failure, I'm a piece of shit. But the reality is a lot more simple. There is something wrong with what you're doing. There's a lot of people that don't make it. It's not a popular thing to say. I think you see a lot on social media like, oh, we're all going to make it one day. We're all going to make it. No, it's just the harsh way it is. When I was first starting this, I was like, oh, if I only got some big guests, if I only got some views, then I would be rolling and everything would be great. But once I did get the views and once the things did get rolling, it's like, oh, but now you got to do it again. Now you got to do it again. Just because you have one video doesn't mean your life is forever changed. You need the consistent views. You need the consistent fans. Big thing about social media is that you need fans. Numbers are not enough. You need fans. Those fans is how you can make this into a consistent career. It's not only the algorithm game, it's the psychology game of what's going to make someone click on this video. And not only that, what's going to make people stay till the end. You got to spark that curiosity. You got to stand out, but you have to make it worth it for them, because the last thing you want is to do that and not have the substance to back it up.
How did you actually get into podcasting?
Yeah, I started this brand probably around a year and a half, 2 years before I started the podcast. And so basically I started on TikTok, and I got some traction on TikTok posting other people's content, and it kind of just blew up. And this is kind of like this was late 2020, 2021. It was like the Wild West of the TikTok days. It's a little harder now to grow on TikTok, but back then it was like people were blowing up like crazy. And so I had a couple of videos blow up, and next thing I know, I have like a couple 100,000 followers, and I was like, "Whoa, this is crazy!" Yeah, and so I kept it going for around a year and a half, just doing that, and then I've always had this vision for Young and Alive, and I kind of realized that posting other people's content in that manner wasn't really a good, sustainable, long-term thing, because I feel like I was one of the first people that made those, those like clips of other people's podcasts and like clipping it up. I feel like I was
you
one.
see them everywhere, all over Insta, TikTok, and all that. Yeah,
everyone's doing it now, but back then it wasn't as common, and so I was kind of one of the first ones. This was late 2020, early 2021.
Got it.
Yeah. And so, and then, I like we talked about on the phone, I started posting those on YouTube as well. And I had some videos blow up, and it got like a couple 100,000 subs from that. And then, and so I reached a point in like 2022 where I was like, I always knew I wanted to start the podcast, but I kind of figured like I need to start this right now because I know that it takes time to develop the skill, and I kind of wanted to do it just to see how I would be, like how I would do. And so I just got started. And I mean, if people look at the earlier episodes, it's all it's all smaller guests. And I just got started, and from there momentum takes over. Right. And so, I mean, sometimes you just gotta, the hardest part, it's cliche, but the hardest part is getting started. And then once you get over that hump and you start to get a little better, it starts to become more fun. And that's when you're really rolling. Yeah.
Yeah, I found that straight away with like the first, because I only tried it out on a whim because my friend recommended I'd do it because he said he thought I'd be good at it. And I was just looking for something to do, something that can compound, something I can work on. And like I was like, all right, what do I actually enjoy doing? What can I do anywhere in the world? Hence being in the van, being in Brisbane at the moment. It's like, I'm not looking for immediate results, but eventually what could get to a stage which I would actually look back and think, this is amazing. I was like, let's try a podcast. And again, those first couple episodes, I loved so much. I enjoyed doing it so much. It was just so much fun. And then as I thought about it more, and I kind of overthought it. I was setting up all these things, and I was doing all this, and I was making it all professional. I was like, let's just dial it back a little bit and just get back to enjoying it. It's just where I'm at now, which is great. And looking at your stuff, looking at what you do, and your podcast where it is now, and the guests, I spoke to you on the phone about this, and when I messaged you and reached out to you, where you are now is very inspiring to me, because I look at that and think, this is maybe not the next step, maybe not the next step after that, but a few steps in a couple of years in the future, this is where I want to be looking at. This is the kind of person yourself I want to be looking at and thinking, you're on a really good path and you've done this really well. I would love to emulate that in my own way in some fashion. So I'm again just very grateful that you actually you responded and you got back to me, and or what you said already and the advice you've given me off cam is amazing. So thank you first and foremost. Thank you.
Absolutely. And it's the advice I wanted to hear, right? And it's also, this is interesting. It was also helpful for me as well because this whole like it working out is very new to me. And so to talk to you
Yeah.
about what worked for me, what doesn't work was actually very helpful for me to like process it. Because I don't know about you, but the way I am, I'm very like go, 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 work, work, work. Probably
Yeah,
take
but like you have those
not as much
flushes of
breaks as I used
energy
to.
which you just go might wane off a little bit, but then eventually it comes back again, and it's like right a million miles an hour.
Yeah, but
When you
that's not
find that
good, right?
wave,
I mean, yeah.
yeah, long term
Yeah.
it's not no.
No, because you do need to back up every once in a while and like look at it from a bird's eye view because, and this could be helpful to you, is yes, you got to work hard, you got to go, 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 but you also have to look at it from like a bird's eye view and take a step back and see what's working and what's not. Because you could, I mean, there's probably so many people out here, and I'm guilty of this too in the past, and I might still be doing it in a way where you're just working so hard, you're going, 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 but you could be doing the wrong things,
Yeah, you
right?
don't realize you're going in the wrong
And that's,
direction.
yeah. So there's a lot of value in taking a step back and just like looking around every once in a while and studying what other people do and emulating what other people do, not necessarily copying, but just being inspired and seeing what works for them and seeing what doesn't work for them. And not only that, there's times where I look at some people on social media and I'm like, don't do that. Like I like
Yeah,
see how their audience reacts to it, and like that's extremely valuable as well. And so it's just like I have to remind myself this all the time to not like, yes, you got to work, 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 but at the same time, like take a step back every once in a while and really think about what you're doing and think about what's working, what's not. And then it's because hard work is important, but if you're not doing the right things, I mean, it's
yeah.
just not going to work.
That's what I mean. And like I fell for it massively when I was younger. I say younger, like I'm only 25 now, but even looking back to, I've been looking at different
I'm 25 too.
businesses.
We're the same age.
Yeah, awesome.
I just turned
So,
25 last week. Yeah.
oh, nice. I'm a bit older then. Happy birthday.
Thank you. Thank you.
So when I was starting like online businesses, the whole dropshipping thing, I fell hard for the Ty Lopez style of earning money really quickly online, and I looked into dropshipping, looked into digital marketing, and all that kind of stuff, and that's what kind of led me towards psychology. And I just veered away from it for a while, and it's only now I'm kind of realizing, oh, this is a long-term thing. Whatever I do now has to compound over a long time to get to anywhere where I imagined it could be in my wildest, most naive dreams when I was 15, 16. Was that anything like how you came to do what you're doing now and found your feet?
Oh yeah, I fell into the trap for sure. I think people get so they want that quick money so bad that they can kind of it's there's also just so much information out there, right? And there's so much like different like strategies for making money that people tell you, and like I feel like
Mm,
what a lot of people do, and I was guilty of this as well, is like bouncing between different things without just fully focusing on one thing. And I was even trying these like you said, like the drop shipping. I was trying all these like money making stuff while I was doing the podcast. And I kind of hit a point where I was like, I need to just focus on one thing. And if I might not
yeah.
make fast money now, but if you focus on one thing and you develop that one thing, then money could come eventually. And it's tough because I also feel like if you're doing that stuff like drop shipping or like all these like things you see on the internet, you have to understand that like your competition is people that have like a team of people behind them, and they have like not only that, they're like in their 40s and 50s. Like that's like your competition is people that actually know what they're doing. And so you, like a 17, 18-year old who has no idea what the hell they're how to drop ship, like you see those people every once in a while blow up and get a lot of money, but that's like, to be real, that's like 5%. Like it's not the majority of people. So I think a lot better thing to do instead is just find your thing and just go all in on it and focus on it all at once. That was definitely a big mistake I made because, I mean, my time was just everywhere when I was trying all those side hustles, and it wasn't focused on one thing. And when it's focused on one thing, you get better at it, and then that's when the money comes. Is when you start to see improvements from it, and you start to see small results. You might not get the big money right away, but you just have to have faith that it'll all pay off in the end. It might take years, right? I mean, there's a span of like before this 2024, before this year started, like there was a span where like I made barely any money. And even back in the day when I had the TikTok account with like 1 million followers, I mean, the TikTok Creator Fund only pays you like a couple $100 for 1 million views. So like,
Yeah.
that still wasn't great money. It was good side money. Like for like I think in total I made $4,000 from millions and millions and millions of views. And so,
Wow.
but that's the price you got to pay, right? Is you got to put in that time where you don't see the money right away. And to be blunt, if you quit because you're not getting enough money, you shouldn't do it in the first place, because
Yeah.
that tells me that you don't care enough and about what you're actually doing. Like, I'm not doing this for the money. I'm sure you're not doing this for the money as well. It's a nice add-on. And what money does is it makes it turn into a potential career, which is huge. So you don't have to work another job. But if you're doing something just for the money, I don't know. I don't think that's a very good way to live, because even when you do get the money, what's next, right?
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, that's the point of this podcast. It's the point of me doing this. It's the reason why I'm currently traveling Australia in a van. It's like money's great. It's a great pipe dream to have. I feel
Mm.
like, especially when you are standing at the bottom of a humongous mountain and you don't know what things are going to get in your way on your way up there. You don't know what avalanches there might be or what trickery that you might have to get through. But it keeps you going in those times where you think, oh, is it going to be worth it? It's like, yeah, because in the off chance and blah, 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 blah. But I mean, if you're not enjoying it, again, what's the point? Like, what is the point?
Yeah.
I fell in love with
Yeah.
this so much, just speaking to people who I know I'm interested in speaking to, like yourself. And it's, if that can keep you going, then that's great. But then at the beginning, I feel like I found that there was so many things which I just thought, oh yeah, it's easy. I just got to do this. I just got to talk to people. I just got to set it up. And then the more I look into it now, the more I realize, like, oh my God, there's like layers and layers and levels and levels and levels I had no idea about. Like, just, and
Yeah.
it's thinking about where do you want to focus your energy? Because there's the marketing side, there's the speaking side, there's the technology side, there's the visuals, the audio. There's so many things where you realize, oh shit, there's like a big team. Like you say with the drop shipping, there's big teams behind everything that you're looking at. And maybe in the early days, especially with drop shipping or podcasting, whatever it might be, where there was no one really knew what it was capable of, you could get a foot up or a leg up, an advantage if you were lucky enough to be early enough, quite easily, like you say. But now it's like so many levels, and it's like, okay, what do you need to focus on? Where are the key elements where you can focus your time and enjoy spending your time more than anything? Like, look, me and you are 25, and I'm sure we don't want to spend our 20s doing something which we do not enjoy doing. Yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah.
we might find a foothold in a very comfortable life where we don't mind doing certain things and we have other luxuries later on, but we're only going to have this amount of energy once. Like, we are the most
Mhm.
energetic and healthy and youthful as we'll ever be again, which is just a crazy thought to think about. So, like, how are we going to spend it?
Yeah. And actually, this is I was talking about this yesterday with one of my guests during an episode I recorded yesterday, and he said that like we talked about the fact that when you're our age, the stakes are lower too. You don't have kids to worry about. You don't have huge mortgages. Like, the stakes are a lot lower. And I mean, so you have to remind yourself, especially if you're our age and younger, that like you are literally in the bottom of the mountain. And not only is like you said, those avalanches coming down, like you don't even know if you'll make it up to the top. So you're climbing this mountain, not knowing if you're going to make it to the top. And just to be real, like it's not guaranteed. It's not. It's like there's so many people who never make it, right? And like with the point where I'm at, like I still look up at the mountain and like I see like the people that are ahead of me, and they got like these insane production teams, like insane intros, and like that for me, I look up to that mountain and I'm like, oh my goodness, like it's going to be a lot
Yeah.
of work. But the thing I would recommend when it comes to that is don't be afraid to take a risk and spend some money outsourcing, because that was really a turning point for me, was when I didn't want to like I was so hesitant to spend money for people to like do the intros in my videos. So like if you watch the intros in my videos, like that's not me editing. I'm not good at editing. I used to
Yeah.
do that, but the quality wasn't as good, and also took me forever because I had no idea what the hell I was
Mm.
doing. So like the best thing I could have done was spend a couple $100 to to my editor, and then he from there he like the video quality went up a lot, and then it was an immediate ROI, like by a lot, because of like AdSense and all of that. And so if you ever feel overwhelmed about doing everything, because I don't do everything right now, but I do the most of it. Um,
Yeah.
and so if you ever feel overwhelmed about that, don't be afraid to take a gamble, right, and spend some money. You need to take risks like that, and you need to take crazy chances in order to. It helps you get up the mountain a little faster. Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, I'm standing here looking at this mountain that we've just envisioned, and I'm thinking, right, there's so many different ways you can do it. And I don't know if you're anything like me, but I've read a lot of different business success books, mindset books, philosophy, psychology, and all these different things. And I'm looking at it like, what is truly going to be worth it? Like, what is going to be worth it in the end? Because again, you don't know, as you say, there's no guarantee of success whatsoever, depending on how you justify or validate success. I feel like, especially at our age, we're kind of coming to our senses a little bit. I feel like with that maturity, whereas like, oh, so it's not about the money. Oh, so it's not about the fame. It's not about all these things. It's not about being on MTV or having a big, massive crib, or like, it's not about any of those things. And you're kind of realizing what it is that you want to be doing. And that for me is where I'm looking at it like, okay, so if I want to do this, I want to do that, and I don't want to do that. So the outsourcing for me is something I want to get to as much as I can. It's a point I've set. It's a checkpoint. It's a base camp on this mountain that I'm looking at, and I'm thinking, when I can get to that stage where I can outsource stuff, and it's not a fear of spending money. I think it's quite literally now it's I got no income. I'm in this van. We've worked for so long. We've now got a set amount, and it's no longer staying around that amount or rising. It is, we know it's declining. We know it's coming down now, and and we're not looking at it in terms of money. We're looking at it in terms of weeks of our life that this will last for. And I can't justify having my girlfriend here with me. I can't turn around and say to her, like, yeah, so I'm going to spend a big chunk of our life on this right yet. But I know it's something
Yeah,
that's so
naturally.
valuable and it's so useful. And it's not a risk to me. It's just, it's potentially an argument.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And it's, I
Mm,
mean, but what you're doing is so damn interesting. Like that is
mm,
crazy. Like I can only like you're gonna look back at these days and be like, man, remember the days where we were just in that van, not making any money, and you're gonna look back at that and like that's what really matters in life is those experiences.
yeah.
And I mean, there's so much time to make money, and
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, then there's something about having your back against the wall too, right? You hear that all the time. There's something about
Mm,
having like that stress on you that pushes you even harder. Absolutely, yeah.
yeah. And that's, again, like anyone who's trying to do anything for themselves is going to feel that pressure. And like diamonds are
Oh yeah.
created under the most
Oh,
immense pressure
let me tell you
imaginable.
something. That pressure never goes away. Never. I
I hope
mean,
it doesn't.
I
I hope it
yeah. I
doesn't.
mean, I can speak for myself. Is like when I was first starting this, I was like, oh, if I only got some big guests, if I only got some views, then I would be rolling and everything would be great. But once I did get the views and once the things did get rolling, it's like, oh, but now you got to do it again. Now you got to do it again. And what if,
Mm,
like, there's always in the back of my mind, like, there's that anxiety of, like, what if this all comes crashing down? And so that never goes away. And that's something that, uh, like, no matter how successful you get or how much you go up the mountain, like, you're always going to have that, like, pressure. And it's just stepping up to the challenge, right? You gotta step up to it and face it. And that pressure really shows who cares and who doesn't. And I think
yeah.
it really determines who will make it and who won't. Is who can take that pressure and not care. And I mean, I think it's cliche, but like it's everything's harder than it actually seems. It really is.
Mm, yeah. I'm looking at it. I'm thinking, for you, what kind of pressures is there for you? Because for me, I feel like at the bottom, of that mountain. There's I'm gonna have to stop. I'm gonna have to start to move away from that mountain analogy soon. But at the bottom, it feels like the pressure. There is no pressure. I'm kind of
Mm.
entering a field. Like, let's say I'm playing NFL, American football, like, and I'm the rookie who's stepped in, not really knowing what's going on, no idea. So to me, there's very little pressure at the moment because
Mm.
it's like I'm just dipping my toe in the water, and all these people around me who have got these standings and they've earned their stripes and they've worked hard to get to where they are and they've put the time in and it's compounded. I can imagine that pressure. I can think, oh shit, you've got hundreds of thousands or millions of people watching your every move and you want to do the best for them. And for me, I'm thinking about how can I maintain a level of humility and confidence and pride in what I do and not necessarily avoid that pressure because, again, we need that pressure. But how do you... One game night is like, what are those kind of pressures like for you? What pressures do you have in your mind when you click record, when you have a big guest who's used to speaking to millions of people? What's going on in your mind just beforehand, which you have to overcome?
Oh, I mean, first of all, technical difficulties. I mean, like I like that actually, like I definitely that's like one of the things that makes me anxious, especially if I have a big guest, is like making sure like it doesn't go wrong and like everything like it like looks good and sounds good. Also, too, yeah, I mean, I definitely am way more nervous for the big guest just because I know the eyes might be on me, and
Mm,
I try to like, and if you're someone that like talks like we talk, like if you make like a big mistake, it's obvious, right? And so like that's another pressure of not looking stupid. But to me, not only is there's anxiety before you press record, there's also anxiety before you press upload as well.
mm,
I get I actually think my anxiety for uploading videos is as much as recording because
really?
especially when oh yeah, absolutely, because there's the worst feeling is uploading something and it like not doing what you thought it did. And but I think you just have to
Yeah.
accept that like not every video is going to do well. But on the opposite side of that, when a video does go well, it's thrilling and it is
Imagine,
incredible.
yeah.
It's
It
it's
is. It's
absolutely
great.
thrilling. Yeah. And so it's the pressure of consistency of keeping it going because there's I mean I've experienced this even when I was doing the TikTok back in the day is that like just because you have one video doesn't mean your life is forever changed. It's you need the consistent views, you need the consistent fans. And so right now that's what keeps me up at night right now is will this continue or is this a one-off thing? Um but I mean, you just got to keep going. You got to keep pushing through. You know.
So do you feel like even at the stage now where you're at and you've got that standing and you're getting the guests, you're getting your confidence and you're finding your stride. Do you still have that thought that it could all just come crashing down?
Every day, and I don't think that will ever go away. I don't think that's ever going to go away. I think that what that comes from. I've been talking to a lot of trauma experts recently, and what that comes from is having times in your life where things were going well and then they all crash down. So by the time when things are good again, you're like, wait a second, like you're like subconsciously, you're like this might all come crashing down again because you have evidence to support that from the past.
Mm,
But my argument is it's worth the try, right? It's worth the endeavor.
yeah.
It's worth putting yourself out there and seeing if it works because as much as it hurts if it doesn't work, what if it does, right? And so you have to keep that in mind as well, is that like you might fall down the mountain when you're climbing it, but what if you get to the top? And you don't want to not get to the top of the mountain because you gave up and you climbed down when you could have been up there. And also too, like people are so stressed out about like making it or like getting a lot of money or like getting the lots of subs, but like if you work hard on something and if you like dedicate yourself and you even if you get like a little bit of side money, it's still more money than you had before. Like that's awesome. Like even with
Mm,
like the $4,000 like I was talking about before from the TikTok, I was like remember like a couple of years ago I was like complaining about it. I was like just $400, like come on, like I got millions of views and I was like
yeah.
that's $4,000 more than I had before. And I'm complaining about that. And so I think if you chase a dream, if you go for something and if you work hard every day, your life is going to get better regardless. Even if you don't reach that top of the mountain, you're like, your life is going to get better. And that's something that I have to remind myself too, because I have very, very big expectations for Young and Alive. But at the same time, I have to remind myself too that this I'm getting so much better personally from doing this, like getting out of my comfort zone, speaking to people, that it's worth it, even if it all comes crashing down. So that's one thing, is that like there's a lot of people that don't make it, and
Yeah.
it's not a popular thing to say. I think you see a lot on social media, like, oh, we're all gonna make it one day, we're all gonna make it. No, like not everyone's gonna make it. It's just the harsh way it is. But if you work on something hard, even if you get like side money from it, and if you really and you gain skills, like that's not a wasted experience. Like your life will get better. It's like for example, if you want to be like the best bodybuilder in the world, even if you don't get there, like you're still gonna look great, right? Like you're still gonna like be jacked. So like that's the way you gotta look at it.
Yeah, having that growth mindset, especially, and that's something. I mean, it seems like the things that we went through at the same times, literally at the same times, because the same age now. You kind of have to, because if you're going to have that resilience and that consistency, there's no way you carry on getting back up. As cliche as it sounds, there's no way you get back up when you've been knocked down without having that compartmentalization where you can just kind of say, right, I've learned from this. Because otherwise, we're just going to beat ourselves up. We're going to beat ourselves up over and over again. It's like, oh, well, this didn't work. This didn't work. This didn't work. What's the common theme? Oh, it's us. We must be shit. That's the thing that's going to stop you from trying the next thing or sticking at the next thing. And then eventually you will, if you can keep going, you'll stumble across something that works for yourself. But then again, it's finding out what works for yourself whilst you're doing it. And I look at all,
yeah.
Go on, sorry.
So when it comes to that, something I tell myself all the time is that like, if what you're doing isn't working, or if you like have like a failure or rejection, or if like you get like rejected by a girl, or like you just like things aren't working out, like there's nothing wrong with you. Like there's nothing wrong with you personally, but at the same time, there could be something wrong with what you're doing. And I feel like a lot of people get caught up in taking it personally. And when you internalize it and you say that I'm the problem, you're actually robbing yourself of looking at like, well, what did I do wrong? Like what can I do to fix it? And I feel like people are so caught up. There's two routes you can go down. You can go down the route of I suck, I'm a failure, I'm a piece of shit, or oh, that wasn't my fault, that was someone else's. Like that was someone else's fault. Like they didn't see my potential. I hate when people say that. Like, no, you probably didn't show them your potential. But so like those are the two routes you can go, but the reality is a lot more simple. There is something wrong with what you're doing. Like there's something wrong with what you're doing, and you need to change if you're not seeing the results you want, you have to change what you're doing. There's nothing wrong with you. And once you change what you do and you do the right things, who knows? It could be completely different. You could see different results next time, but internalizing it and making like there's something wrong with me, that's not a very effective way to look at it.
Yeah. I like looking at it such as it's the art form. Anything that we're doing and we're looking at, it's an art form. It's not us. It's not, we are not podcasters. Somebody else is not an artist. They're not a photographer. They are a person, and they are partaking in this art form, which has been around for centuries, or maybe it's brand new and will carry on after we're gone in some kind of vein or another. So when we're looking at this art form, paying respect to it and doing your due diligence and putting the time in because you want to get better and you practice this art form because it's fun. Whether it be jiu-jitsu, whether it be painting, whether it be photography, dancing, singing, whatever it might be, we're not attached to these things like they are us. We're just partaking in an art form and we are developing it as it goes along. And those who are better at developing this art form will do better because of that. Because like you mentioned there that it's not you're just doing the wrong things. And I think it's an important clarification that no, you're not doing the wrong things per se. You're doing the wrong things if you believe that you're doing the wrong things if you want success in this thing. So you're not doing anything wrong. It's just if you want these results, you've got to do these particular things, which is always changing and the goalposts are moving.
Hmm.
So you're not doing anything wrong. Effectively, you're doing something right because you're learning. And the only real way to learn is by practicing, doing it yourself, learning from those mistakes, and having something that keeps bringing you back. Something that brings you back to that one thing. There's something so pure that you love within that, that you enjoy within that. And that's the way I'm looking at it now. So obviously it's a million miles away, but I'm looking up at, say, the best in our game, Joe Rogan. And look at the things that he's doing, which nobody else does, because everyone else is kind of getting stuck in the weeds and the details of the intros, the B-rolls, the conversation points, the questions, the highlights, and all these social media things. Whereas him, his whole life has just focused on the one thing that he's actually supposed to be doing, which is the conversation.
Hmm.
He's focused on the conversation. He's focused on those skills. He's treating it as a skill, which he's getting better at and he's developing. He can have somebody in front of him, no matter from what caste or creed, speak to them about anything, very often completely unrelated to what their specialist subject is, and have a great conversation with
Yeah,
nothing written
absolutely.
down.
Yeah.
With nothing written down, no key points, no highlights. Obviously, if he's brought a guest in because he wants to speak to them about a certain thing, but he's not obsessed about it, which I feel like that authenticity just comes through naturally. And I can't bring myself away. Like, we had this conversation on the phone about doing certain things to help it work profitably or social media wise and getting engagement and following those tactics and rules. But at the same time, that comes at the cost of taking your eye off the ball, off the real ball, which is, what are we doing? Are we enjoying ourselves? Are we enjoying what we're doing? Is it like, yeah, the success and the growth is great, but what's your true aim and goal within that?
Yeah, it's you get and you're gonna make a lot of mistakes along the way, but you
Oh,
gotta change course. You gotta. But here's the other thing too. There is a lot of luck. Like that's just being real. There is a lot of luck. A lot of the people you see on the top, there were some things that went their way. But I mean, it's another cliche. Like they put themselves in that position to begin with. But life just sometimes life just goes in your favor, right? I mean, even
yeah.
for me, like this whole brand kind of fell into my lap. So like
How did that happen?
so yeah, so I was one day I was it was like late 2020. I was on I was on my phone. I came across a video of Bill Murray talking about how a painting saved his life, and for some reason I was like I got the urge to post it on TikTok. I posted it under my personal name. Um, and this like clip, it wasn't even edited. It was just like a screen record of this clip. And like for some reason, like I just like decided to post it. And then I got a text because I didn't realize that like your contacts like showed up. Or like people like other people using the app could like see like your name, like it shows you like you're recommended through your contacts. So I had some girl in my classes being like, "Why'd you post this?" Like that's and so I was like, okay, maybe I shouldn't put it under my name. And so what I did is I had this idea for Young and Alive since maybe like mid 2020. And so what I did from there is that I changed the account to Young and Alive, and that's when I started posting those videos. And then a week later, a video took off, got like 1.7 million likes, I think 7 million views. And so without that, like I don't think any of this would be happening right now, which is crazy to think about. So like sometimes just like things just fall in your lap, and it's about
Oh,
what you do with it. That really
yeah.
determines where you end up. But I think a lot of people get caught up in like the bad stuff that happens to them that they have little control over. But at the same time, like there's also good stuff that's happening to you that you're not really appreciating. Like we're really bad at appreciating good stuff that happens to us. And people need to get better at that. Is like when something good happens to you, you need to really appreciate it. But instead what we're doing is we just brush it off and we're so focused on all the bad stuff that's happened to us.
Yeah, it's a definite skill. And you hear it when I was reading into a lot of the psychology stuff and the philosophy stuff, and everyone always kind of banged on about appreciation and gratitude. And like, as a young guy, I had no freaking clue what they were talking about. I was like, yeah, I'm grateful, and I appreciate it. But like, you don't realize the root of what you're actually doing when you do that. is that you're
Mm.
changing your fundamental mindset into a growth mindset. You're changing the world around you, and only more recently, after a few drug-induced experiences, I realized, like, oh shit, yeah, like these little things that you keep telling yourself over and over and over again, these are the ones that can change every aspect of your life. And then it's not just your life, it's the world around you. And it's that, again, that what you give, you shall receive, as in, if you can have that appreciation and gratitude in what you do, then you can have that confidence within what you do. That confidence permeates. Almost that same thing where you've always heard, if you smile at somebody, they might go and smile at somebody else and smile at somebody else. And that chain reaction goes so much further than you could ever realize completely. And that's the same within your work and what you do. And it'll always kind of shine through. And it's a skill, like you say, it's not very well practiced. But I feel like the ones who get it, the ones that truly get it, you may not even see them. It doesn't mean that they're successful and famous or rich. It means they're happy and they're content. And they're content with what they do. And that's something beautiful, which we can all learn a little bit from.
Absolutely. And it's the same with love. People are so caught up chasing love. They want people to love them, they want people to like them. But at the same time, there's people that already love them that they're not fully appreciating. And so that we just suck at appreciating stuff. And it sucks because like the whole gratitude thing is so cliche at this point where people kind of brush it off. But like cliches are cliches for a reason because they're true. And so something that I try to do is I try to like because was I like many people like me when I hear a cliche on like the internet I'm like all right, like I've heard this before, like it's whatever, like I brush it off. But if you can put it in a different way or like say it in a different way that stimulates like a different feeling, like it makes more sense, right? And there's also when it comes to gratitude and being grateful, I think it's also important to be grateful for what you have the potential to have. You should be grateful for
Mm.
that your life can change because like even if like you're not happy with where you're at, like you should be grateful in the fact that it can turn around. And I think
Mm.
because there might be people watching this that like just like nothing's going their way, nothing's working, and they're like, what is there to be grateful for? You can be grateful for the fact that it can all change one day and you're not stuck here and life is very fluid and things change. I mean, it goes like this. And even when you're at those high moments, it goes low. When you're at the low, it goes high. And you just have to accept that fact and understand that. Something that I try to do is I don't really base like I don't measure my life from happiness. I measure my life and how good the story is. And in order for the story to be good, you need those ups and downs, because I think that's what really matters in the end is how good your story is. If your goal is to be happy or like this is unrealistic because shit happens.
Yeah. Oh, it's relative. It's relative to yourself and your experience. And that's the one thing I'm coming to learn more and more, that in order for me to have great experiences, I need to have shit experiences.
Hmm.
If it's the same every day, you're not going to notice the difference. We only perceive the world around us based on its variation, based on the differences between it. That's the same with color. It's the same with sound. It's the same with anything that we do experience-wise. We only notice it because of how different it is from something else. And that's something that we can only get, in a way, through taking risks. Because if we don't take any risks and we do what we find comfortable and we stay consistent with what we do, the variance between our day-to-day lives, barring some godly event or something that happens to you, is very, very minute. And that's when that appreciation becomes hard, in my opinion,
Hmm.
because you can't appreciate something you're not aware of. But if you have the bad times, you can appreciate the good. You can have the good times, you can get through the bad. And that's something that comes through that variation, which something I read not long ago, which I can't remember where I read it now, but it really stuck with me, which was, to have it all, you've got to risk it all. And I can't think of any truer statement for myself, where even for me coming out here to Australia and traveling, backpacking, or traveling in a van with my girlfriend and building the van ourselves and taking these risks, these are experiences I would never have had if I didn't take the risk.
It's a
And
great story.
I've got a lot of friends, a lot of really good friends who I love dearly back in my hometown. who have spoken to me and have come out and said that they wish they could do something like this. They
Mm.
wish they had the balls to do something like this. And when they first said it, I was in a different mind state, and I was kind of like, what do you mean? It's like, it's easy. It's like, just do it. Just, there's nothing stopping you. It's easy to buy a plane ticket and say, but then I didn't realize the other stuff going on, which I'm becoming more aware of now that I've had some similar experiences which tie me to certain things and push me away from other things. And again, that risk is easier for some people based on their own experience. And again, we can only be grateful for our own experience that we have the knowledge of this, because other people don't have that luxury. They don't have the luxury of pain, of suffering. They don't have the luxury of a burning desire to change things, because you do not get off your seat to find a new one if it is sufficiently comfortable.
Hmm.
You've got to be uncomfortable to want to go and move. And I'm so glad that I was uncomfortable.
Yeah. And I mean, it's also too, it's like for me, the thought of like, I'm sure so many people can like relate to this too. The thought of just having like a boring life of like everything like 9 to 5, yeah, like that face you just made, that I feel the same way. Like that for me is like, I want nothing to do with that. I want purpose. I want that struggle. I want the story. And like that, like just like normal life. Like some people, like some people are just wired differently in that way. There are some people that just want that normal life, and like that's fine too, right? If you want it,
So
but
exactly what you've just said there. So I used to say that exact same sentiment over and over again. Like when people would ask me like what I'm doing or why, like I'd say that. And then it took me a while to realize, like, hang on, people think I'm a bit of a dick here, because if in their own lives they don't match up to what I've just said, it makes it sound like I'm calling them a bit of a lowlife. So I've had to kind
yeah,
of wind that back in a little bit. Like, no. I understand why people do the things that they're doing. It just doesn't work for me. And it's like, why am I even altering what I say anyway? But yeah.
yeah, and some people just can't. They can't see that. Like they assume that everyone looks at life the same way that they do, and that everyone should look at life the same way they do. But you really need to understand that like everyone's different in that way, and like a lot of it has to do with our childhoods and the way the way our childhoods go down, and that kind of wires us in different directions. And it's the same thing with opinions. I mean, I'm sure you know what's going on in my country right now. Like people are going at it. And something I really try to tell the people closest to me when they judge someone for having opinions, or like family members for like criticizing people who have like certain political opinions, like we really have very little control over our opinions, because our opinions are based on how we were raised, how like which parents we had, where we grew up. And so you're criticizing someone for the way they grew up, like that doesn't sound very
Yeah.
good to me. Like
Yeah.
people need to understand that like not everyone is going to have the same opinions as you. If you think everyone is going to have the same opinions as you, the same opinion as you, like that's just you being delusional.
And well, just to think that your opinion is right is like, so of all these billions of people, like once you get to that realization that your opinions and your beliefs and your experiences have come directly from your first-hand experience. And you may argue that you've had more first-hand experience than anyone else, but that's a very particular way of thinking, that your one experience is the one true experience. And it's no matter where it comes from, it might come from a good place. It's a very unthought through place a lot of the time. And it's again reminding yourself of that though, because it doesn't take much at times. And if let's say you've not eaten, let's say you've not slept, let's say there's stresses externally in your own life, and these things may have happened to me, and you could have said something which in my head I'm like, no, fuck you. Like, and you don't know, do you? And it's like, it's the time of the day, time of the month, what's being said. And it's, again, having that awareness is, I think, something that just comes from experience, because having looked into psychology and philosophy beforehand and sociology with people, I got to a stage where I started to understand more and realized how much I didn't understand. And then the more I found myself analyzing things and looking into it and then curating what I said and what I did for the benefit of other people to an extent, the worst things generally got for me. But then as I kind of let those feelings and emotions flow out, for better or worse, I'm just got better at explaining myself and connecting with people. Things generally got better. So it's a catch-22. Of what do you are you after certain results, or do you just want to enjoy yourself with these people?
Yeah, and it's also like I like there like you I catch myself a lot of times like criticizing other people and like looking at their flaws and like and saying like how could they like not like how could they miss that? How could they not understand this? But it's one like people are like people don't try to suck. Like I know it sounds like kind of like people don't like it's not like they like wake up in the morning and they're like I'm how do I suck the most as I can today. They're trying, right? And some people just have different upbringings and they and different experiences and different circumstances that they're in.
Mm.
And you just need to be aware of that. And if you were fortunate enough to be raised in like a good circumstance, you need to appreciate that.
Yeah, it's hard. You've got to appreciate that. And if you have that realization, that is, I love the Francis Ngannou story of this shit that he went through in the mines and as a kid and failing to cross the country. Like, to anybody else, that is a absolute fucking nightmarish life which you wouldn't wish on anybody. But what he's from that experience, what that turned him into, and what mindset that gave him to where he is now is something, again, he can only appreciate and be grateful for. And like you look at all these successful people who hand over their achievements to God because they have no way of fathoming how they got to where they are. And again, we can't think about it for everybody, but all we can do is help each other. Like, we're guiding each other home in that regard. If I give my own advice to you, you've got to obviously take it with a grain of salt, and that's my experience. Whether you agree with it or not, it's work. I can only say it because it's worked for me.
Mhm.
And it begs the question: do you think we should give advice as people? Do you think we should actually give advice, unprovoked, especially?
I think so. I think it's also, but with that being said, like you said, take it with a grain of salt. This goes back to even like the whole like side hustle, like drop shipping
Mm.
conversation. We got these people telling like what worked for them, but like it might not work for other people. So like I think it's tough because you don't want to sound like you're like a know-it-all, like you know everything, like take my
Mm.
advice. But like I think when an opportunity arises to give advice, like there's a way you can say it that's not like being a dick, right? And there's it's like not like putting yourself up and acting all like, oh, like listen to me, I'm so smart. Like there's a way like you can be like, have you considered this, have you considered that, like I did this once and it worked. And like instead of like schooling someone, especially like to be real, like we're 25, like there's like adults that look at us and they're like, these kids have no idea what the hell they're talking about.
Oh,
And
100.
so
And
like,
I have no
yeah.
doubt that they are 100% correct. They
Oh,
have fuck
absolutely.
all clue.
Yeah.
But would they trade places with us at 50, 60 years old? Would they
Yes.
rather be where they are or where we are? It's
Yes,
that.
exactly. They're yep.
Yeah,
But
we've
with
got
that
that
being said,
opportunity.
yeah, but that being said, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't listen. Like I think
Oh no, yeah.
you can don't block off advice. I think like if you get advice, like you should like you can take it with a grain of salt, but at the same time, don't just block it off completely. And like actually consider it. But at the same time, there are times where like you're like, no, like screw you, like that's not true, like
Mm,
that's not right for me. So it's
yeah,
both. You gotta trust your gut with that when people give you advice.
yeah. I mean, I do. As again, me and you are in a very privileged position where we get to speak to a lot of people who know a lot more about us about very different things. And it's
Yes.
one of the reasons I got into this game is like you're telling me I get to speak to fucking people all around the world. That's what I set it up as an excuse to do so. I wanted
Mm.
to speak to some of the most thoughtful people in the world and some people who excel in their area or have the most incredible adventures and stories. And I'm like, oh my gosh, wow. I'm like, that's like, to me, that's a massive privilege. And then taking advice from all these people and what they do and what they share. And I look at it now, they're like, oh, I can't take everyone's advice, but I can take everyone's sentiment.
Mm.
I can look at where they've come from because I look at it like there's a small little piece of everybody, which is their kind of core beliefs and feelings. and everything else spans out from there. The actions that they take, the things they do, the decisions that they make, and the emotions that they have spans from that core belief of who they are. So if I can get to know who they are and understand them as a person, I'm going to have effectively a map to understanding their decisions throughout their life. If I know their story and I've seen what they did, and I can now look at, okay, this is the kind of person that you are at this moment when I spoke to you, and I can see now why you made those decisions. Because to me, that makes no fucking sense of why you did that. Why did you go left while everyone else went right? Like, what the fuck? Why would you do that? Everyone, the book says go right. Everyone on social media, every guru that there is saying go right. Why did you go left? Like, oh, because you're this type of person. You had these experiences which led you to here, and which has led you to going against the crowd, and it worked for you. Could it have been luck? Maybe. Could it have been thought? Could it have been experience? Maybe. Wisdom? Who knows? Could it be divine intervention? Who the fuck has any clue whatsoever? But it works. I want to know what kind of person you are and how you benefit the world as to why this works for you. Because I'm a firm believer nobody's where they are for no reason. And I'm not saying it in a religious way or a divine way that you will get whatever you deserve, because quite frankly, in the short term, people don't. But in the long run, it all works out. And that's why, again, speaking to yourself, like, you're at this level now where I'm thinking, Bryan, teach me. Teach me. Who are you?
Yeah.
How does this work? Why?
Yeah. And I think it's important to say that like a big thing for Young and Alive is that like I'm not trying to claim that I'm not like I have a very hard time with giving advice like that, because the reality is that I'm a stupid 25-year-old, right? And so
Same
that's
here.
what I try to do. Exactly, but that's what we try to do with the podcast, right? Is we try to bring people on that actually know what they're talking about, and can give feedback that's actually helpful, like scientists that actually know what they're talking about, people that have decades more experience than we do. But at the same time, when it comes, but like I think there's advice that I can give, right? That I think is helpful, but at the same time, understanding that I'm just a stupid 25-year-old and I'm just processing this stuff with you. And the opinions I have now, like, it could be different in a couple of years. There's plenty of stuff I thought like 2 years ago that like are completely different today. Is like
Yeah.
things have changed.
Oh, I'm hoping so. Because if we didn't have that mindset, me and yourself and all of my listeners and your listeners who wouldn't be listening otherwise, if we didn't have that mindset, then we'd be very different in conversation. We'd be very different kind of people. And we wouldn't reach out to the guests that we reach out to. We wouldn't want to talk to them. We wouldn't care what they had to say. We wouldn't have started the podcast and our podcast in similar likenesses at all because of that. And that's something that develops over time. So I'm hoping, God, oh fucking hell, I hope that I'm a different person in 5 years. Not because I hate where I am now. I'm very grateful and love where I'm at right now, especially doing what I'm doing. But if this is all there was to offer for people in this world, I'd get pretty bored of it pretty quickly. Like, I'd want something new or a new experience or to learn more. If I thought that I knew everything right now, I'd feel like there's massive gaps in human knowledge, which don't quite sit well with me. So it's the beauty of what we get to do and who we are as people.
Yeah, something I love to do is, I mean, everyone looks back at their younger self, like they're like 5 years ago, like even like 3 years ago, like 10 years ago. And you're like, you had no idea what you were doing. Like, you were so stupid. Like, why did you do that? Like, you cringe at yourself. I find a lot of comfort in the fact that like 5 years from now, I'm going to be saying the same thing about me now. And that kind of takes a lot of pressure off. That takes like a weight off my shoulders, that like you're always just going to look back at yourself and be like, you had no idea what you were talking about. Like, you did this completely wrong. And so I use that a lot, is like looking back at myself 5 years, like a couple of years ago, 5 years ago, and then like try to get advice from what I think my 30-year-old self would tell me, my 28-year-old self will tell me, my 35-year-old self will tell me. I do that a lot, and it's really helpful.
Yeah, in the same vein, I try to look forward. Like exactly what you just said, I think it's very helpful. And it's, again, again, for me, it does take that pressure off as well. Like, you're not a finished article. Like, what you've got now does not have to stand the test of time. You're developing and evolving and changing as you go along, which is amazing. But at the same time, what can I do now which is going to benefit the me of the future, no matter who that is? Almost like you're leaving a time capsule of knowledge. Because again, if I went back to my old self and told me exactly what you should do, if I tried to give myself advice, if I went back 10 years to the 15-year-old me and tried to tell myself what I believe now, there's no fucking chance on this planet that I would listen. Like, I just wouldn't. I'd be like, fuck off, old man. Like, what are you talking about? Even if I
You
knew
wouldn't
that
be
that
able
was
to
me.
relate. Yeah.
Like, you just wouldn't have a clue. But then
Yeah.
what can I do now, which is going to leave the me of the future a better chance of what he wants? Like, things like your health, your experiences. Like, I knew for a fact.
Starting the podcast.
Yeah,
Starting the
exactly.
podcast, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I think about a lot too, like the reason why I started 2 years ago, even like from the ground, even though there was like no evidence that it would work, is because I knew, like, in my heart, in a couple of years, I will be thanking myself that I started. And so a lot of people hesitate to get started, but the way to overcome that is to really understand that if you don't get started now, like this stuff takes time to grow. Everything takes time to grow. And if you're not starting now, you're robbing yourself of that time. And your life could be completely different in 5 years if you take the actions now. And I mean, because you have to also reframe it, look in the past as well, be like, where you're at now would not be the case if you didn't do what you did 5 years ago. These things compound over time, they add up. So, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And it's, again, having that appreciation for your journey, because you wouldn't be where, like you said, you wouldn't be where you were now if you didn't have those thoughts in the past. And it does kind of zigzag and get around, and you find that's what wisdom is. Like, that's what wisdom is, which I can't be naive enough to think that I know it all now, where there's people who've been alive for 5 to 10, okay, even if they're double my age at 50, in actual lived experiences, that's more than just double my time alive. Like, I try to think of it as, I've only been able to make my own decisions since I was technically an adult. I only moved out and started taking these risks 5 years ago. So to somebody who's 50 now compared to me at 25, that's not double what I've had. Technically, it's like 5 to 6 times what I've already been able to experience and decide for myself, where I've been autonomous. So they've had a lot more experiences than I have, and yeah, they may have had some luck, but I'll have some luck and I'll have some bad luck, and there'll be different things that happen, and who knows, I could finish this podcast with a massive smile on my face, feeling really optimistic about the future, walk across the street and get T-boned by a double-decker bus. Like, who fucking knows? But it's where we find ourselves now, and if we can leave those things for us and be open and receptive to change and to new things that happen, then we're going to be in an amazing spot. An amazing spot. Just the mindset alone of being grateful and appreciative, starting those things. I'm a PT, a personal trainer by trade, and I take a lot of people who are starting at 0. And I've had people who started at 0 and have got to level 1. Level 1 being they came into the gym for the first time. The smile on their face is amazing. And to see that slow development, and they're not coming back necessarily for the results anymore. They're coming back because they feel amazing that they're doing something for themselves in an amazing place. So that having that experience now at the early stages, whether it happens or not, it's a fucking amazing feeling to have in the present, which I'm sure you can attest to.
Yeah, and it goes back to that point I said before about, like, even a lot of people, they don't get started because they don't think they'll see the results, or the results come too slow. But once again, if you go to the gym, if you work out, if you read, if you do all this stuff, if you work on your business, your life is going to get better no matter what. Even if you don't reach the destination you're meant to go to, your life is going to get better. Your relationships will be better. Let's say you're a single dude that can't get any girls, like, maybe your prospects will get better. So, like, you just gotta work. That's what it comes down to. And, like, even if you don't get to where you want to go, because this shit's not guaranteed at all, your life is going to get better, and you're going to be happier. You're going to be more skilled, and it's just that's what it's all about, right? Is getting. I think that like purpose having like something to strive for is like the antidote to a lot of like sadness and depression. And like without like a mission, like I think you're just lost. And
Mm.
so you need to chase that mission regardless if you'll see the results or not, because the other option, in my opinion, and once again, people are wired differently, that's just so empty and that sucks. And like I
Yeah.
would like, even if like from I'm sure it's the same for you, even for me, even if this whole young and alive thing doesn't work, I'm not gonna stop. Like I'm gonna do
Mm.
something else. Like I'm because I like that's where I get my purpose. And like the thought of just stopping right now and just like working a 9 to 5, like watching TV afterwards, like that makes me want to rip my fucking hair out. So like that's the thing, is like if you're passionate, just don't just keep going. Like even if you don't see the results you want to get, like you're gonna be happier even chasing it in the first place.
So looking back to when, well, 10 years ago, let's say for us, 2015, that's when I
Hmm.
left secondary school in the UK. So you were 50, just to go back to then, what did you imagine for yourself 10 years ago? Like, as in what you may have
No
wanted.
idea.
No, did you not have an idea then?
I had no idea. I wasn't
No.
really thinking about that. You're very, I mean, what, you're in high school, like you're very in the moment. You're very like everything is the biggest deal in the world. Like every like the high school drama, like not making sports teams. Like I was very like in the moment with that. That I didn't really like think about like 10 years in the future. Maybe I did, I just don't remember. But I mean, back when you're that age, like everything is like those like stupid bullshit, like high school drama. Like it's
Yeah.
all like that's consuming your mind. And like I wasn't necessarily thinking about 10 years in the future. I think when you turn like 20 and you start to turn that corner, I think that's when you really start to be more future focused, especially
Mm.
graduating from college or university. That for me was, you're less like in the moment of that college life, and like you're more focused on like, all right, well, what am I building here? What am I working
Yeah.
towards?
Do you believe that's a good thing going like, do you believe it's better now where we are and where most people are when you get into your 20s or you finish university or college? You then start sort of have a very different mindset of you look a lot further forward than in the present. You
Mm.
start to think about where do I want to be because you've been drilled into us, and rightfully so to a certain degree. Like if we don't think about it at all, then we're in the shit. Like
Mm.
if we don't think about it, bad things would happen. But do we go
Yeah.
too far the other way though? Because think back to when you were in high school, people often look back at those being the time of their lives, or not, but those are the times where they actually felt alive. So how much do you believe that we should plan, or versus we should actually just get raptured in what it is we're really doing?
I think it's a balance. I think you should have a direction to where you're going, but you also need to understand that life never goes how you think it's going to go, and
Mm,
things change like a lot. And I think the one of the biggest keys to success, in my opinion, is your ability to adjust and your ability to adapt. And I think it's important to have a direction to where you're going, but not get too attached to that direction, because you could be driving in the complete opposite direction that you're not supposed to go. But if you, once again, like we said earlier, but if you take a step back and you look around a little bit, you can figure out a better direction to go. And so I think it's a balance of like in the moment, yes, have a direction to where you're going, but in the back of your head, don't be too attached to it. Like be willing to change, be willing to switch directions. The when I look at people on social media that really like it's like they like nothing was working for them, and all of a sudden there's a switch where like things go up like that. That comes from adjustments. That comes from that literally what that comes to is adjustments, adjusting thumbnails, adjusting content styles, adjusting titles. It's a game. It's a game of adjustments, and
yeah,
that's with everything. That's with business. That's just with anything. Like if you have the ability to adjust and adapt, I think you're unstoppable.
yeah, definitely. It's like you don't have a map, you have a compass.
Hmm.
And even if you did have a map, it was written by somebody who was living in a different time, and the
Mhm.
constant ever-changing nature of what we do or anyone does, it wouldn't work for you now. Like I could read, let's say, Steve Jobs' autobiography about what he did exactly. If I were to follow those exact steps now, it wouldn't lead me anywhere because we're not living them. So again, it's like having those people around you who are doing things now, having contacts where you're able to speak to live in that moment, in that data, bounce your opinions off and learn from is invaluable. But figuring out for yourself, you would be unstoppable. And like, you're proving that now, and I thank you. Thank you for all the knowledge you've given me for that. And it's, I don't know, I look at, even now, we're the same age, and I'm looking at where you are now and what you're doing, and I'm thinking, fuck, like, that doesn't seem like what I'm doing. But then again, I'm snapping back to, nah, this is my journey. This is my journey and how I'm going to do it, and I enjoy that.
Well, let me ask you a question. When was your first episode uploaded?
Oh, last November. The very first episode is November.
There we go. Age isn't a factor. It's reps. It's time.
Yeah.
It's skin in the game. So I mean, but to say bluntly, there's nothing. I'm not so special. There's nothing special about me. I just put in the 2 years of work, and that's the difference maker, right? And so I'm very, very excited in 2 years to see where you're at, and hopefully I'll be a little higher up in that mountain, but still scared I'm going to come crashing down as it's inevitable.
Oh, ski down the mountain, man, and you'll get a lift back up afterwards.
Yeah. Absolutely. I like that, skiing down the mountain. Yeah.
No, it's great. I mean, where we are now, and it's a very exciting industry to be in, whether you're successful or not. Like, I look at it like, how rare is it? For some reason, how humanity has got to a stage where it is now like this, fucking God knows. But how rare is it that you have the chance to sit down and talk to somebody for an hour to 2 hours plus, just for the sake of conversation? You're not there for a pint or a drink of beer or a glass of wine. You're not there for a meal. You're not there to watch a sport game. You're not there for work. There's no intention behind what you're doing at all other than having a conversation about life and shooting the shit. It's like, that is so rare. Well, you feel so lifted and uplifted afterwards that if there's nothing else ever comes from my podcast or your podcast or whatever, having that view of, fuck, this is like, we can do this. We have an excuse to reach out to somebody we would have otherwise possibly never have spoken to, and get to just chat to them, listen to them, be in awe of them, hear stories from them, go through the emotions and learn from them, and then finish off and then go about your day like, holy shit, this was a great day. And just be so thankful for that. It's like, it's unbelievable. It's just unfucking-believable. Like, every time. And it's not all like that. Like, I'm sure you've had guests beforehand where you went into it with high hopes and high expectations, and because you've heard so much about them, read about them, or viewed their content or other people's stuff, and then all of a sudden you were like, it's not quite what I was expecting. And you finish it like, oh, that could have been more. You might even beat yourself up a little bit. Like, sometimes I've had to stop myself beating myself up after some conversations, like, fuck, why did I say that? Why did I take it down that route when I should have done the other thing?
That's so valuable, though. That's like, once again, it's the adjustments that you make, and it's not like I said before, it's not taking it personally. It's being like, what did I do wrong? Like, there's nothing wrong with me. What did I do wrong? I did something wrong, and if I did something different, maybe the results would be different. That was a turning point in my life, was that when I reframed failure in that way, because like most people, I've experienced so much failure in my life. Like everyone, like when they're younger, like you experience failure, rejection over and over again. And I internalized it. And a breaking point for me was when I had that mindset of like, wait a second, like, I think I'm just doing the wrong things. And the good news is that you can change what you do. Like, it's very simple to change what you do. When you say there's something wrong with me, that's called a fucking existential crisis. And that is so hard to fix. But it's important
to have a couple of them, though. It's important to have a couple, at least.
Yes, absolutely. Especially when you're like 15 in that age we were just talking about. You need to stumble through it, right?
Yeah, for sure. So just to bring it back a little bit before, because I know you said you had a few time constraints, and intentionally I cannot see the time on here. But I feel like we might be coming up close to it. I just wanted to get a little bit selfish and just ask a few things whilst I've got you on the line.
Yes, of course.
About our industry in particular. And so firstly, I want to put it up to yourself where, what, other than the consistency and just keeping at it in sets of reps, really can go into the details about it. And I'm sorry, audience, about if this doesn't directly specifically help you guys, but it's going to help me and help us in the long run.
It might help some people. Yeah.
Well, I hope so. What would you suggest from where you started to where you are now? What would be your biggest tips in terms of what to look out for not necessarily what to do, because we've already discussed that always changes, but what should I keep my eye on and what should I not kind of be led astray by at the same vein? So both sides of the coin, what should I look towards and emulate or assess and adjust to? And what should I not pay attention to, as in it's not really that important?
Well, I think one, rewatching. You should rewatch. I'm sure you do. You should rewatch every single episode you make, because you kind of like make mental adjustments. Like there are many times in the early days where I didn't like the way I was talking, and next time I was like, oh, I'll switch that up a little bit. Um, Another big thing, if we're just talking about straight podcasting, another big thing is not only being educated on the guest, but being educated on the topic. Because when you're educated, when you do some research on the topic that you're learning about, you come up with better questions because they're genuine questions, right? They're not just like the surface level, like what's like what's the prefrontal cortex, those like surface level questions. Like
Yeah.
when you actually know what you're talking about, you're able to come with two, like actually genuinely good questions. um Title, thumbnail are huge, are absolutely huge. The best way to advertise your podcast is the thumbnail and title. That is the best
Is that
promotion.
just
Like,
mainly YouTube or socials as well?
I'm talking about mainly YouTube here. I'm sure there's social, like other socials, it kind of like it matters a little bit. But the best way to promote your stuff is to have a good thumbnail and a good title. Because the best way to promote your podcast is the YouTube algorithm. Short form content, sure, it can help bring some eyes. But if you want a lot of views on YouTube, the best way to get those views is by really understanding the algorithm.
What would you
And by
break down? I know it's a big topic, the YouTube algorithm. Just put a pin in that because I do want you to finish that part. But just as whilst you mentioned it, how would you, in a nutshell, sum up the key points to look for in the YouTube algorithm as it is today? Because I know it's always changing, and I knew what it used to be, but it's something I've not really focused too much on.
you need to give people either something that they desire. You need to think about like who would want to click on this video, like what the person that would click on this video, what are they looking for, or like what can this video add to their life that they desire that makes them click. Or another, there's different ways to do it. Another option too is, because it's so saturated and like everything is so saturated and there's like millions of videos suggested, you really do have to stand out and not don't be clickbait. Like clickbait's not a good option because another big thing about social media is that you need fans. Like numbers are not enough, you need fans. Those fans is how you build a consistent how you can make this into a consistent career. And so you need like a title and a thumbnail that really pops out and stands out. And I mean, a good formula, I think I mentioned to you this on the phone, a formula that I found recently that was like a turning point was having bold statement, a bold statement on the thumbnail, but it's not clickbait. And it's actually like kind of true. And you can stimulate things like fear, like curiosity. It's really a psychology game. Like
Yeah.
I'm sure like what you've done with your research in psychology is going to be super, super helpful. It's not only the algorithm game, it's the psychology game of what's going to make someone click on this video. And not only that, what's going to make people stay till the end and have that watch time. Because that's the other big part of the algorithm is the watch time. And so a hack that I found is that bold statement. Like in the first 3 seconds, you should be talking about that bold statement. So right away, they're like, I trust this. Like, this is not clickbait. This is not them trying to get like views. Like when you, for example, I'll give some examples of the videos we've done. The Bruce Lipton one with 600,000 views. The thumbnail is The Matrix is a documentary. And so like you see that, you're like, what? Like Matrix is a
Yeah.
documentary? Like it catches your eye. And then you click on it. From the second the video opens, he was saying the Matrix is like the Matrix is a documentary and here's why. And I got you hooked at that point. And then from there, that's when people can watch it. Another one is with Andrew Bustamante. I just had the ex-CIA spy that's everywhere. People probably have seen him everywhere. I said the thumbnail was "War is coming," and people were like, "That's fear, right?" That's like, "Oh my god, like war is coming." They click on the video, and the first thing he says is, I think World War III's already started, and here's why. And so that's the thing, is that you gotta spark that curiosity. You gotta stand out, but you have to make it worth it for them, because the last thing you want is to do that and not have the substance to back it up. And because then they're just gonna click off and they're gonna forget about you and never want to click on your video again. The stuff that you shouldn't focus on, I'm trying to think. I think, well, I'll add one more that you should focus on, is quality. I think in a game of everyone's quality is so good. Like, you look at some of these other people, like their quality is insanely good. If you have anything less than that, like, people are going to notice. Not saying that you like your audio should be good, your video should be good, because, like, for example, this setup was also a big game changer for me. I got a light, I got a good camera, I got this backdrop. Like, that's huge because it looks more professional. Back in the day when I was just like on my laptop camera, like, people see that and they instantly think like, oh, this guy isn't the real deal. Like, we'll just click off of it. And especially in those early stages when you don't have like a name for yourself. Like, there are people that, like, you could get like a big name on social media to open up just like their cam, like their lap. Like, I had do you know who Wim Hof is?
Yeah.
I had him on Friday, and last Friday.
Beautiful. Awesome.
And he was literally doing the thing from his phone. But it's still the video is still probably going to do well because it's Wim Hof.
It's Wim Hof.
But the issue is that I'm not like, we're not like that level. So, like, having that like bad quality is like, that's going to be like, people are just going to see that and be like, okay, this is not professional, especially nowadays when everyone is top notch. Like, they have their stuff together. Like, the quality of some of these top podcasters is like, it's insane. What not to focus on, I think, I wouldn't be too hard on yourself if you have maybe smaller guests and the videos don't do well. That's going to happen because they're smaller guests. And a lot of people, you have to ask yourself the question, would I watch this video? And there's even videos that I've made where it's like, no, I wouldn't watch this video. Yeah. But you kind of have to go through that. It's about the practice. It's about the reps, and it's not wasted, even if you get a video with no views, because another big thing is momentum. Momentum is huge. That's what I'm trying to focus on right now is, yes, you got some success, but you got to keep that momentum going. And so just like getting started and learning and making mistakes, that's where that momentum comes on. And then all it takes is one. Like, it's really like one video. Not that it changes your life. Like, the success I'm seeing right now, it's not like my life is like the same. Like, I'm still around the same people. I'm still living in the same apartment, still driving the same car, but I've set myself up to where it can go and go and go. And so sometimes all you need is just one opportunity, and that's when things turn around. But then after that, like we said, like, there's so many one hit. It's like music with one hit wonders. Like, you want to be sustainable, you need to do it again and again and again. And that is that's hard. That's the hardest part of it, to be honest.
Yeah. So you have those tail events, and those tail events, you can't really force them. You can try to, you can always hope for them. Like, that's one thing I noticed with your content, anyone's content, even no matter how big you might be or whatever it might be, those tail events can give you that kind of leg up. But you've still got to earn it. You've still got to earn the new founding that you have, because you've got some, I've noticed you have some content creators who are really good in terms of the substance, but they haven't had that bit of luck yet, where they might have one guest or one video which is like, oh, okay, it's up there, and then the rest of their feed, the rest of what they do, allows them to stay there because they've got the backing or the substance and the quality to back it up. And there's the one thing I've been kind of looking at for myself, because the quality thing is one thing, but every time I'll upgrade things and downgrade things, and I'll try and find certain things that work and don't work. Where you have noticed through some of my videos, I've got good lighting and a backdrop. But I noticed whilst I was doing the podcast, I wasn't very comfortable, and I couldn't relax, or I was distracted. And I've had good cameras, good lighting, and different setups. But then I noticed I was constantly making sure that things were looking good here, there, and I wasn't focused on the guest. So I'm trying my best to be as authentic as possible throughout the podcast. Whether that works or not, whether that's going to be great for the algorithm or not, because I know just as much as you know that I could have some really well thought through questions prepared, which are going to get viral-ish answers from my guests. And I could have a load of clips from that, which could do really well, which could make my podcast look really good. And yeah, they would have these answers and these questions with them, but at the same time, what am I not doing if I do that? If I do that, I'm robbing myself of the opportunity to develop a skill of speaking to somebody and making a connection with that person. Because I can speak to a guest, just as you can, and ask them a load of questions like an interview. But I don't want that. I want a friendship. I want to get to know this person. And if I like that person, they like me, we can speak to each other and we can help each other out. And we can support each other and build that community for ourselves. And that to me is so much more valuable. It won't happen from everybody. It might not happen from only a few people, but if there's a few people or one or two people, like there has been, where I'll just send them a message, they'll send me a message. I'm like, oh, check this out, I'll check that out. And that community over time, I'm hoping was what I want out of it. And a big inspiration for that, for me, was like Joe Rogan, for example. Like, obviously, he's the top of the game. And I'm not comparing myself to him at any level whatsoever yet. But one thing I noticed is, like, he doesn't have anything scripted. He doesn't have B-roll. He doesn't do his edits. He doesn't stick to their topics. He doesn't pick the most famous, successful guests. And yes, obviously, he's put in the hard work and he's had those tail events to put him where he is. And I'm not saying what has made him successful is going to make me successful, because different people, different places, different time, of course. But I look at this and think, how far do I want to vary from what I believe I want this to be? And it's a very difficult decision, because I could arguably make this thing grow a lot quicker by doing certain things, which will work really well. But I can also not develop the skill which adds the substance to it. Because I'm sure you've listened to podcasts beforehand or seen YouTube videos where visually and audibly they look amazing. But if you peel back the layers and think, right, what are they actually saying? It's like, oh, it's all shit. It's all stuff I already know. It's all stuff that everybody talks about and does the same things over and over again. And I cannot, and it sounds like they're reading from a script as well, which most of them nowadays are from AI, which is just fucking infuriating. So, like, if that's going to be my advantage, fuck, it might take an extra 10 years to build that following and build those fans. But at least I'm then building a skill which can help out with that. But at the same time, I do 100% need to know and develop the technical skills, the ins and outs of, like, the dirty stuff in the industry, which you don't really hear about and it isn't glamorized. Like not dirty stuff, that's a poor term of phrase, but the stuff which is important for the algorithms, for the growth, to give yourself that potential. But I just don't want to focus on it.
Yeah. People can smell BS. They can smell inauthenticity. I got to get going, by the way.
No, of course, yeah, sorry, I haven't checked the time. But yeah, so that's right. One thing I did want to ask before you did shoot off, just because I'm actually starting this episode is I did say that I don't have any scripted questions, but I do have one at the end, so it's a little bit of a lie, which I like to ask everybody anyway, which is just one piece of advice which has helped you, which you could help the masses with, which you believe would help the masses, and why.
Oh, I have, yeah. So my favorite quote ever is from Tony Robbins. It's from the book Awaken the Giant Within. And this is, I feel like a lot of people are struggling with this right now. It's, you could be winning, but feel like you're losing because the scorecard you're using to grade your life could be unfair. And so in other words, a lot of people, they have the scorecards for how they're grading their life is very unfair. And social media isn't really helping with that, because you're just constantly like looking at other people's lives. And that's kind of setting an unrealistic scorecard for yourself. And so, yeah, you could be winning, but feel like you're losing because the scorecard you're using to grade your life could be unfair.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate you a lot, Bryan.
Absolutely. I'd love to do this again in maybe a year when you have 100,000 subscribers.
We'll see where we are, but it's been amazing talking to you. Thank you so much. This isn't a goodbye. I'm sure I'm going to keep in contact. Stay in touch. I'll probably annoy you a little bit with how many questions I've got.
No, it's great. It's great. It's actually, it's a very good thing that you're asking these questions. A lot of people don't do that. So absolutely.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. Right. We'll end it there. Wrap it up.
All right. Thank you so much.